Most important thing in life will always be the people in this room. Salute, mi familia. Salute.
Releasing in the summer of 2026, Fast X Part 2 will finally end a saga that began all the way back in 2001. Today at ScreenRant, let's take a look back at the colorful history of the long-running blockbuster franchise. Here are 5 big things that you probably didn't know about Fast and Furious. Film productions are known for breaking the rules every once in a while, especially in the older days of cinema, and many of the first Fast and Furious films are no different. For instance, there is a very simple reason why The Fast and the Furious, the very first movie, feels so authentic. Many of the cars filmed were owned and driven by real-life illegal street racers from LA, who also functioned as consultants for the then fledgling film crew. Meanwhile, most of The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift wasn't exactly shot in the titular city, where it's illegal to film without going through a lengthy bureaucratic process. So the crew resorted to guerrilla filmmaking just to get the shots of Lucas Black's Sean Boswell walking around in Tokyo. Universal Pictures even paid a fall guy to say that he was the director, spending a night in jail so the actual director can keep working on Tokyo Drift. In addition, the stunt coordinator for Tokyo Drift is the actual real-life drift king of Japan, Keiichi Tsuchiya, who was a legendary figure in the underground street racing scene before he became a 2-time Le Mans winner. Tsuchiya was the only stunt driver who could safely perform the final drift scenes on the mountain roads in Tokyo Drift. Meanwhile, in the 4th movie, Fast and Furious, viewers may remember Dom and Brian confronting the Mexican drug lord Arturo Braga in a church, one of the movie's main action set pieces. In real life, that church was actually funded by a drug lord running local operations. While the early film sets of Fast and Furious weren't on the same illicit level as Apocalypse Now, the Fast and Furious crew certainly broke more than a few eggs to fry this high-octane omelet.
Hey, Mia, you better hide your baby oil.
I'm just playing.
You better hide that big-ass forehead.
I was just joking. Whatever.
Believe it or not, Johnson wasn't the original actor that was slated to play the sharp-tongued, hot-headed DSS agent Luke Hobbs. Instead, the role was initially developed for the legendary actor Tommy Lee Jones, who was supposed to make his franchise debut in Fast 5. Jones's Hobbs would have been the perfect foil to Dom, the authority figure to help usher the franchise from street racing to earth-shaking heists. But the Fast and Furious fan base have a very strong social media presence, and after Vin Diesel read a Facebook comment clamoring for The Rock to become a part of the franchise, the rest was history. As Hobbs was initially tailor-made for Jones, they needed to redesign the character to fit Dwayne Johnson instead. But it would have been interesting to see Jones's take on Hobbs, which would have resulted in a very different tone for Fast 5 and Hobbs's successive appearances. Curiously, parts of this unrealized performance can likely be gleaned from Jones's role as Phillips, the gruff, skeptical colonel who recruits Steve Rogers in Captain America: The First Avenger, which came out in the same year as Fast 5. Whether or not Diesel made the right call to cast Dwayne Johnson instead, his Luke Hobbs has delivered beyond expectations, and is even expected to star in his own spin-off solo film. Tommy Lee Jones is certainly the better actor, and would have offered something different to the role, but only Johnson could have chased Dom through the favela and portrayed an anti-hero that can actually physically dominate someone like Vin Diesel. Besides, it's not like the franchise needs more Oscar winners in its roster.
And the Oscar goes to Helen Mirren in The Queen.
The mother of Deckard, Owen, and Hattie, Magdalene Queenie Ellimson Shaw, is famously played by the decorated Helen Mirren, who's been nominated 4 times for different Oscars and won the Best Actress Award for The Queen in 2007. Queenie's daughter Hattie herself is also played by an Oscar-nominated actor, Vanessa Kirby, who nearly snagged the Best Actress Award for Pieces of a Woman. And let's not bury the headline here, there's also Broadway legend Rita Moreno, the abuelita of Dominic, Jacob, and Mia Toretto in the films. Moreno won the Oscar for the Best Supporting Actress after her iconic role as Anita in the original film musical West Side Story. Notably, Moreno is the only member of the Fast and Furious cast who can also lay claim to the EGOT achievement, which means that along with her Oscar, Moreno has also won Emmy Awards, a Grammy, and a Tony. Meanwhile, the villain-turned-hero Cypher is played by Charlize Theron, who was thrice nominated for different Academy Awards, and won the Best Actress Oscar for the biographical crime drama Monster. Moreover, it may surprise some viewers that Brie Larson, who plays Mr. Nobody's daughter Tess, won the Oscar for Best Actress in 2016 for her role in Room. And last but not least, Djimon Hounsou, who played Mos Jakad in Furious 7, has been nominated twice for the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. With Fast X Part 2 on the way, there might be even more Academy Award winners and nominees joining the franchise soon. Indeed, there is an unusually huge amount of critically acclaimed talents amid the Fast and Furious cast. They just don't get as much attention as the muscles and speeding cars, which, to be fair, is the bread and butter of the franchise.
Thanks for showing me the way.
Jacob?
The Fast and Furious franchise has destroyed over 2,000 cars. That's not an exact number because it's become harder and harder to track with each new installment, but it's probably safe to say that no other movie franchise has wrecked as many vehicles in the name of movie magic. Even after over 10 mainline films and spin-offs, 2,000 cars still seems like a lot, and yet it explains why the overall production budget for the entire franchise comes to a staggering total of $1.7 billion, with the Fast and Furious movies collectively grossing $7.4 billion in the box office. However, those over 2,000 cars clearly paid for themselves. Even outside the films, Dom's original 1970 Charger in its wrecked state sold at an auction for $85,000. Apart from lining the pockets of Universal Pictures executives, the result of all this destruction speaks for itself. No other franchise can lay claim to staging anything as epic as the Fast 5 vault heist. Fast and Furious 6, which alone cost $160 million, somehow outdid that with the bridge and tank scene, where Dom bends physics to save Letty. And let's not forget the last 10 minutes of Fast X, which are arguably the most ridiculous, high-octane scenes in the franchise. However ridiculous these scenes may seem, this film crew takes them very seriously, and after burning through tremendous amounts of money and twisted metal, the sheer cultural impact of the Fast saga has paid dividends. Naturally, the individual budget for each new film has increased since the Fast and the Furious in 2001, with Fast X topping the scales at $378.8 million in 2023, and Fast X Part 2 is expected to not just cost even more, but also to gross even higher at the box office. In fact, most viewers already know how the Fast saga is going to end.
You know, that color looks good on you.
Yeah, look a whole hell of a lot better with your blood on it.
Yeah, good luck with that, Hercules.
The no-lose clauses in the contracts of Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson, and Jason Statham are very real. And unless Jason Momoa tries the same, his character Dante Reyes is pretty much doomed in Fast X Part 2. While these no-lose clauses aren't exactly a big franchise secret, what may not be common knowledge is that Dwayne Johnson started the trend in Fast 5, and it was adopted by his co-stars Vin Diesel and Jason Statham in the subsequent films. Although Johnson and company have been called out for being so vain as to include never losing in their actual contracts, it's hard to argue with a formula that has consistently worked for years. It also certainly helps that these contracts are simply hilarious. Given their respective film careers, the no-lose clauses are not just exclusive to, but completely on brand for Johnson, Diesel, and Statham. Moreover, with these silly stipulations in place, it's always interesting to see how directors get around the problem when a fight breaks out between any of the three. After all, it's not like the no-lose clauses can hurt the bulletproof plot and characters of the Fast and the Furious. Interestingly, Fast X Part 2 could also use this to drop some truly unexpected final twists as well. Would it count as losing to Dante if Hobbs sacrificed his life to save Dom's family? With the Fast saga coming to an end in 2026, do you know of any other interesting and little-known facts about the Fast and Furious franchise? Thank you for watching Screen Rant, and stay tuned for more movie news.